All right, we're going to go over the Gabi Gentle recipe that I refer to quite often in a lot of my tasting videos. This recipe is designed to complement the Gabi Standard recipe and is very similar in a lot of ways. I'm not going to go into as much depth as to the why behind all of the choices being made on this recipe. Do refer to the Gabi Standard recipe for a lot of the details on the water or the grinder specific type stuff. One quick note is that the grind on this recipe is a little bit coarser than the Gabi Standard recipe, and where in the Gabi Standard I was referencing a 500 to 800 micron grind particle size, the assumed grind particle size on this recipe is about 600 to 900. It's just a little bit coarser on my grinder. I'm moving from 6.5 to 7 on my dial. To explain the difference between these two recipes, it really comes down to the taste impressions on the palate. The Gabi Standard recipe is designed to push really high extraction yields, and when that happens, the flavor separation in the cup becomes very apparent. That makes it a very useful tool for evaluations because I can taste very clearly the separation between the acidity, the sweetness, the body, and the finish. And especially the finish on that Gabi Standard recipe really pulls away from the rest of the sip and gives me a really good idea of where the roast profile is at. Now with the Gabi Gentle, those flavor impressions are really pushed together, and that makes for a little bit of a more just enjoyable cup, something that you don't have to think so much about. You're just getting really good flavors. I also find that it bumps up the sweetness a bit and the intensity overall, and especially into the finish. It really pushes the finish into the overall impression of the taste on the palate, and usually cleans up that finish and shortens it and makes it not quite as lingering. Okay, so I've got my recipe ready to go here. We're going to brew the new drop Colombia Granito de Oro. With this recipe, it's a really different taste impression for this coffee between the two recipes, and I'm finding that I'm really enjoying this one a lot more on the Gabi Gentle. So I've got my dose ready. The dose for this recipe is a 12-gram dose. I am using the Gabi Master A brewer as usual. I'm using the exact same water in this recipe at the same temperature, which up here at 7,200 feet, 2,200 meters is about 197, 198 Fahrenheit. The water is 6020, aka holy water, and check out Strive for Tone on Instagram for that recipe. It's a really good catch-all water to brew most H&S coffees. The grind size for this recipe is approximately 600 to 900 micron on the ground particle size. I'm using the same grinder, the Ditting 804KR with machine steel burrs, and on my dial that is moving from 6.5 on the Gabi Standard recipe to 7.0 for this Gabi Gentle recipe. Okay, to start this recipe off, I'm just going to bloom 30 grams of water as usual. And just as with the Gabi Standard recipe, I want about a minute of total bloom, compensating for the fact it's going to take some time for the water to travel through the top of the Gabi. So I'm only going to wait about 20 seconds before I start my second pour. And to finish, just 170 grams of water poured into the top. And that's it. 12-gram dose, 200 grams of water total. I bloom 30 grams into the bottom of the Gabi, and I'm adding 170 grams of water to the top. And just like with the Gabi Standard recipe, what's so appealing about this brewing device in particular is that it's so consistent from cup to cup. Taking out the variables and the mechanics involved, different pouring structures, different methods, different amount of times. I don't want to pay attention to any of that. I want to just be able to pour my water in and get something coming out that is very consistent from cup to cup. While we wait for this to finish, I'm going to go over some of the expectations that I have here. So, as I kind of mentioned in the top, this recipe is designed for just a little bit better enjoyment of a coffee. And for most non-H&S coffees, I would say this recipe is the best one that I go to, that I'm going to get the best cups out of. Everything on the shelf behind me here is very likely to taste best on this recipe for me. And again, the reason for that is that I'm pushing the notes back together into something that's a little more cohesive on the palate, especially in that finish, where the Gabi Standard, oftentimes in the finish, I get a lot of dryness or a lot of sort of lingering type notes, a little bit of an over extraction at times on certain coffees. And that does help inform me about the direction of the roast profile when I'm using it as a tool. But when I just want to enjoy a cup of coffee, this is my go-to recipe. All right, we're all finished up here. A little bit of a shake just to get everything out. Very nice. I chose this coffee to demonstrate for the recipe today because it presents very different notes between the Gabi Standard recipe and the Gabi Gentle. I go over this on the tasting video for this month, for February, where this coffee is featured. In this recipe on the Gabi Gentle, the acidity and the intensity is really punched up, and I'm getting the notes that are listed on this bag quite a bit more than I was with the Gabi Standard recipe. It has a really nice juicy mouthfeel on this recipe. The Hawaiian punch note is really strong and apparent. The pineapple note on here also really stands out on this recipe, and that black currant tartness to this coffee as well. It's all really cohesive and kind of pushed together. I can still taste the differences in this, but especially in that finish, the finish is a lot shorter and cut off, and it is a lot cleaner. It's not quite as lingering on the palate. So that's it. That's the Gabi Gentle recipe in a nutshell. This is what I'm going to quite often when I just want to enjoy a coffee. That's a question I've gotten a lot from folks, is what's the recipe I'm using when I just want to enjoy a cup of coffee? And this is usually the go-to. I have a few others in the arsenal here at H&S, and I'll probably try to make a video for those as well. But the Gabi is an excellent brewing device. It's super consistent from cup to cup. That's really important here. And this Gentle recipe provides a lot of enjoyment for the coffees that I like to brew. So that's it. Until next time, happy sipping.